It began with a question few Baptists expected to face. What happens when trusted traditions collide with determined innovation? In the early 19th century, as revival fires of the Second Great Awakening swept across the frontier, the Baptist community found itself at a theological crossroads. Beneath the fervor of missions, Sunday schools, and tract societies lay a deeper conflict, a dispute over divine sovereignty, the authority of Scripture, and the very nature of gospel propagation. On one side stood the Primitive Baptists, deeply committed to a theology of predestination and the autonomy of the local church. On the other, the Missionary Baptists, convinced that organized institutions were essential to fulfill Christ's call to take the gospel to the ends of the earth. The collision of these visions sparked bitter pamphlet wars, church splits, and decades of mutual recrimination. The flashpoint came in 1827 with the Kehuki Declaration, issued in North Carolina. The Kehuki Association formally condemned missionary, Bible, or tract societies, Sunday school unions, and the like as unscriptural innovations, warning that they tend to distract the minds of Christians, produce confusion, and create division in the churches. Their message was clear. The work of evangelism must remain within the local church, unmediated by external institutions. Just 5 years later, the Black Rock Address delivered by elders, including Gilbert Beebe, sealed the split. The address denounced nearly every new religious innovation, mission boards, seminaries, temperance societies, as human inventions, novelties, and devices. Beebe's conviction rang out, "Salvation is of the Lord. I have had no confidence in the plans, devices, or operations of men, but have felt to trust in Him alone." To Primitive Baptists, organized missions betrayed God's sovereignty. Each effort to engineer revival felt like replacing spirit-led action with man-made machinery. Theologically, the primitive tradition leaned on radical Calvinism and figures such as Daniel Parker, who taught that humanity was spiritually predetermined, seed of God or seed of Satan, making any mission planning unnecessary at best, presumptuous at worst. Parker declared, "If God would save His own children, any kind of mission plan would seem ridiculous." Not every Primitive Baptist embraced Parker's two-seed doctrine, but his fierce opposition to mission societies resonated deeply with many. Other leaders echoed the critique. John Taylor called mission boards a money-making machine, arguing they turned religion into bureaucracy. Meanwhile, Samuel Trott and others labored to preserve doctrinal integrity, reaffirming election and justification in the face of revivalist emotionalism. Primitive Baptist worship remained stark and solemn. A cappella singing, no musical instruments, no Sunday schools, unpaid pastors, and sermons rooted in scripture and doctrine. Congregations were often small, rural, and fiercely independent. Splits occurred, even within families. The 1836 Big Split in Georgia illustrated this pain when churches imploded, communities divided, and relationships ruptured over support for missions. By contrast, missionary Baptists saw revival and expansion as divine opportunity. Inspired by figures like William Carey, whose rallying cry, "Expect great things from God, attempt great things for God," permeated American Baptist thought, they embraced cooperative structures. The 1814 founding of the Triennial Convention and the 1832 establishment of the Home Mission Society marked the formalization of organized evangelism in America. Luther Rice, freed from the mission field, crisscrossed the nation, urging churches to unify for the cause. Adoniram Judson, American Baptist pioneer in Burma, became a martyr-like hero. His famous words, "There is no success without sacrifice," inspired thousands to give sacrificially. Among women, Annie Armstrong, founder of the Woman's Missionary Union, 1888, mobilized laywomen with the calls, "Go forward," and "More workers, more prayer, more giving than ever before." Her efforts widened the base of the movement beyond clergy and theologians to entire congregations. Missions gave rise to seminaries, publishing houses, Sunday school associations, and denominational conventions. Most notably, the Southern Baptist Convention, formed in 1845 partly in response to Northern Board's refusal to appoint slaveholders as missionaries, and partly by Southern Baptists' desire for institutional autonomy. Missionary Baptists became the face of Baptist expansion, global evangelism, educational institutions, hospitals, and publishing networks. Yet as missionary Baptists grew, Primitive Baptists resisted. They refused membership in conventions, rejected promotional methods, and insisted Scripture offered no warrant for modern ecclesiastical apparatus. Over time, missionary Baptists numbered in the millions. Primitive Baptists remained few but unwavering. Internal disputes over absolutism and predestination, practices such as foot washing, membership, and community associations only reinforced their separatist identity. The schism had profound social dimensions, too. Missionary Baptists often came from more educated, economically prosperous, and urban contexts. Primitive Baptists were disproportionately rural, poorer, and resistant to cultural change. Racial and gender dynamics also played out differently. African American Primitive Baptists continued austere worship traditions, while Black missionary Baptists grew predominantly through conventions like the National Baptist Convention, emphasizing education, uplift, and outreach. Women found leadership through missionary Baptist institutions. In primitive circles, roles remained largely traditional. By the 20th century, the divide was well entrenched. Primitive Baptist congregations, often found in Appalachia or small southern towns, maintained unadorned services and doctrinal preaching. Missionary Baptist churches, particularly under the SBC umbrella, established mission fields worldwide, extensive seminaries, mass evangelism, and millions of adherents. Yet, remarkably, both movements persisted, not as caricatures, but as convictions deeply held. Primitive Baptists held fast to Beebe's claim, "I have had no confidence in the plans, devices, or operations of men," while missionary Baptists lived Carey's vision, "Expect great things from God, attempt great things for God." Both sides believed themselves faithful, yet historically they stood almost completely apart. Ultimately, their story invites critical reflection. How can churches today balance doctrinal purity with missional urgency? Can innovation serve the gospel without substituting human methods for divine calling? How do we maintain unity amid disagreement, especially on secondary matters? The schism between primitive and missionary Baptists is not merely a historical footnote, it's an enduring case study in ecclesiology and evangelism. It reminds us that passion for the truth can unite or divide, that institutional momentum can both empower and undermine, and that sincere believers can and did part ways while earnestly seeking Christ's glory. If this narrative has stirred your curiosity or challenged your assumptions, I'd love to share more stories like it with you. Subscribe now to get rich historical narratives, deep theological reflections, and inspiring stories delivered to your inbox. Never miss an insightful post. Join our community today and explore how faith, history, and mission intersect in surprising ways.